Hi everyone and welcome back. So here we are going to write nestjs APIs, and this is our basic setup. Okay, and in the previous video we have downloaded this JSON, right? So it contains a private key, project ID, lot of things which we needed in our project in the nestjs, because while initialization of this project we need this private key, client ID, and all these credentials, because we are connecting to the Firebase. We are connecting to the Firebase to create the user and all. So we need all these credentials to initialize the Firebase SDK. Okay, so is this Firebase private key? We can actually copy and paste it. So what all things we needed? We needed a private key, client email, database URL, and the project ID. So let's copy the project ID. This is fine. We get the project ID. Then we have Firebase database URL. Okay, so is it here? Client email, let's copy this client email. And Firebase private key is this one, the big one. Just copy this from. And here in the main.ts, what we are doing is we are initializing the Firebase SDK. That's why we need all these arguments: process.env private key, client email, project ID, and the Firebase database URL. Okay, so this admin is coming from the Firebase admin, and we are using .env to populate all these credentials in the process.env. npm run start. We don't have a database and all these things, so we don't have a Docker setup running here. We just have a plain and simple nestjs application, and this is doing the initialization. And what we need is credential object. Credential object requires the private key, client email, and the project ID. Okay, so our application has started. Now we will introduce the routes. So I think we don't need this now. Let's close it. So we populated all the environment variables: private key, client email, project ID, database URL. Now we can go ahead and we can start writing the routes. So if you see the controllers, here we have auth controller. So we can create one user controller, let's say, because we are going to write the user registration route here. User.controller.ts. Let's create a copy of this. So this will be the same API v1 API taken with a user, and it requires access token. So it's a sign up, right? It doesn't require an access token, so we can remove it. Okay, and we are going to use Firebase service. That is fine. We can remove these things. These tags helps only the Swagger. So here we can do API v1 user. It should be post. Okay, and we can create a DTO. So it is should be create user request, and so this body will change because we are not going to validate the token and all. We are going to talk to Firebase and say, okay, allow us to create a user. So the things which you need, like I'm going to have email. So we are going to pass a lot of things like email password role, email which will be of type string, email password role will be of type string, and here you can define the API properties and all. Okay, so this is the DTO validations. Okay, let's finish this. So email validations, password validations, and the role can be of type enum. I will add that. And this is email. Let's add the validation. So this is my user DTO, and this is what we are taking in the request payload. So this is user controller. We are taking user DTO. Let's import this, and this user DTO will have all the required parameters. And now what we can do is we can actually use this Firebase SDK to create our user. And the creating a user is simple. Firebase SDK will give us UID in the response, and what we are doing is await admin.auth display name you can hard code it or you can take the input from the user. It's not we are going to use much. So there is a password and there is an email. Okay, so we have created a user. This will give us the user ID. So what we can do after that is admin.auth dot, there should be a method set custom user claims. This is important method, and what we are saying is for this user ID set the role property also. This is what we have to do. That's why I moved this feature of creating user onto the server side, so we can get the user ID just after user create, and then we can just set the custom user claim like populate the role in the user data. Simple, that's it. That's what we want, and we can just send the UID in the response. So return the UID, and this is what we need to do in the create user. We can take the display name also in the payload input because it's simple, and we can customize this role because it can be of type enum. All these things I will customize, and let's connect in the next video. What we are doing is this is our sign up. Now we need to just create the login which will just once the user is created, you will be able to do the sign up. You will be able to do the login through the UI. Okay, and then you will get the token you will send back to the server for the authentication and authorization. So we are going to write a middleware to authenticate a token, decode the payload, and extract out this role information, and then write add the authorization layer on our existing APIs. Okay, let's do that in the next video. Thanks everyone.